Who is the master?
Is it Sho'nuff? The Shogun of Harlem?
I expect you to say I am, but I guess we're not there yet.
I don't feel comfortable.
It's the first act, so.
Oh, Bruce Leroy, where are you now?
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
Are they in the proper approach pattern for today?
Negative.
Hold the weapon! Now! Charge the lightning field.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Dispatch Ajax. I'm Skip.
I'm Jake.
Good news. This is around about our 100th episode.
No shit.
Yeah, I think technically it's like 102, but some of those were short, so maybe 103.
And we, as old men, don't count short pants.
Nope, don't want no short show.
Wait, is that?
That's the radio edit of
short?
that song. Yeah. No short dick show, but
You
yeah,
know,
I
I
did the
don't think
radio
I've
edit.
ever heard the short dick man. I think I've only heard short man because
I know, because it was the radio edit.
Yeah.
We were kids. Yeah, no, that's what it is. Yeah, That's why they did that. It doesn't make sense otherwise. Just don't bother. If you're gonna do that, then don't bother putting it on the radio.
You know, I was like, all right, I didn't remember the song very well, so I want to look up the lyrics. It has next to nothing lyric-wise.
No, not at all. I mean, no, of course not.
Man, she was pissed off about this, like, eeny-weeny, teeny-weeny, shriveled little short-dicked man.
Yep.
This is don't want.
Why don't you tell us what you do want?
What in the world is that thing? Do you need some tweezers to put that little thing away?
Mm-hmm.
That has got to be the smallest I've ever seen in my whole life.
And that got on the radio. Yeah, I want to know who hurt her, or at least disappointed her.
I haven't thought about that song in decades.
Memorable, I guess.
Is it, though? I think the fact that I didn't even think about it.
Well, we do remember it.
Well, I guess I remember that it existed.
Speaking of things that you definitely know exist, we have a new sponsor.
Yay, money. I love monies.
Yeah, I got an ad read here.
Well, how about that? Let's hear it.
Okay.
What product should we purchase today?
Oh, well, it's not a product actually, but yeah, just here you go.
Oh, okay. I'll just I'll lay back and think of England while you tell me about it all.
You know how you get up in the morning, you get dressed, you eat breakfast, you kiss the wife and kids goodbye, you go to work. Well, we all wear masks just to get to the grind of the modern world. So why not discover your secret identity on the sandy beaches and crystal clear waters of the idyllic Corto Maltese? With no more open combat and heavy investment from LexCorp, Corto Maltese is the vacation you've been waiting for. Corto Maltese. We don't know if it's paradise, but you'll like it.
Love that Corto Maltese.
Now free of brand X.
The beaches were riddled with it.
Needles and lipstick and there was shampoo everywhere.
It was years and years before I knew what Corto Maltese was.
Isn't that interesting? Most people still don't.
Unless you're European, it's not well-known comic. You know, it hasn't been for decades.
Right. Which is why today we're talking about Corto Maltese.
No shit?
Yep.
Well, how about that?
I was literally thinking about it the other day because I just recently rewatched Batman and I was like, it sounds like a real place. I think I've heard it before, but it can't be real because that's not the kind of thing DC does. It turns out it is real, but not a real place. It is actually a character named Corto Maltese, who was a swashbuckling sailor. And this is something kind of a big blind spot that most people don't know about.
Totally.
The character of Corto Maltese was created by an Italian man named Hugo Pratt, Chris Pratt's great uncle.
He wishes.
Yeah, he does wish. No, he's got Schwarzenegger in that line. It's fine. In 1967.
Wait, Schwarzenegger is related to Chris Pratt?
He married his daughter.
Oh, wait, well, okay, but not like by
He's
blood.
got him in the camp. He's in his corner.
He's in the camp.
It's like when Apollo died, and you know Rocky inherited his fucking trainer.
Gonna help him win the fight.
He will. These comics are actually well regarded in Europe and in other artistic and literary circles as well written and well executed.
You've had some different artists through the years. I think the early stuff is almost Dick Tracy kind of Tintin kind of vibe.
I'm sure they have a big stable of artists that they've used over the years. The weird thing is that this is even more obscure in the American zeitgeist than Tintin or Asterix. Corto Maltese is actually kind of a big deal in just about every other place than America.
Yeah.
It has been translated into many languages and adapted into several films. The series features the titular character, Corto Maltese, who's a jaunty sea captain who lives in, well, basically the time frame is the first 30 years or so of the 20th century. Canonically, he is from Malta, specifically the city of Valletta, and he was born on July 10th, 1887, the son of a British sailor from Cornwall and I'm not going to use the word gypsy. They do throw that around a little liberally, but technically...
this was 1887, and it was like written in 1960s.
Yeah, but gypsy meant a lot. You had Irish gypsies, you had all sorts of gypsies, but this is what we would consider as a stereotype. This would be the kind of gypsy that reads fortunes with a crystal ball.
More of like the Romani?
Romani, yes, very much Romani. I actually have some friends that are Romani, or Roma, depending on where you are and where you come from. I think very specifically, if I remember the research correctly, she was ethnically Andalusian Romani. So that's right. She was Andalusian Romani.
Us being clever Americans, we're really good with the world and figuring out where things are.
Yeah.
Above Gibraltar, next to Portugal. It's a lower part of the southern part of Spain.
And they were often referred to as gypsies because of the nomadic nature of their culture, which was sparked mainly by pogroms and racist persecution that drove them from wherever they currently were living. Nazis didn't like them either. So that was a big thing. Corto Maltese grew up in the Jewish quarter of Cordoba. He early on realized that he had no what is called the fate line in his palm. And so because of that, he stole his father's razor and carved his own, which was also supposed to then allow him to determine his own fate.
Fascinating conceptually.
It is.
You could also just take it as an interesting character bit of someone who's not going to let his circumstances be dictated to him, and they're going to...
Sure. I'm sure in later adaptations and interpretations, that's probably exactly what it is. So essentially, he was an adventurer. Okay, this is stupid. This one thing I was reading likened him to Jack London, Butch Cassidy, and the Red Baron. What?
So they're all sitting at a bar, right?
Yeah. All three walk into a bar. What are you talking about? Do you notice how completely disparate those characters are? So he debuted in a serialized comic publication, The Ballad of the Salty Sea.
Salty.
The Ballad of the Salty Sea was published in the first edition of the Evaldi Editor, which is a comic magazine. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Oh, I guess that's a section of it. It was published in the first edition of the comics magazine Sergeant Kirk. What?
Yeah, Sergeant Kirk. It was
Dick York.
You had Sergeant York.
James Kirk.
James Kirk and Sergeant Kirk was in the middle of the two.
Which is really weird because in Star Trek, originally the Enterprise was going to be named the Yorktown. That's weird.
Admiral Dick, you say?
The story basically just talks about smugglers and pirates in the World War I era in the Pacific Islands. So then in 1970, Pratt moved to France and began a series of short Corto Maltese stories for the French magazine Pif Gadget, which lasted for 4 years, each of his stories being 20 pages, which isn't too far off from comic length. I mean, it's not that bad. In 1974, he went all out with full-length stories where he sent Corto Maltese to Siberia, set in 1918.
Get out of here, Corto Maltese.
You don't want to be sent to Siberia in 1918. I'll tell you that right now. But The story, shockingly, was called Corto Maltese in Siberia.
So it's not just a clever name.
It premiered in the Italian comic magazine Linus. Yep. That's right.
Was Pigpen not available?
Pigpen magazine, believe it or not as big a seller.
Well, it is. It's just, it has completely different material.
Well, a seal didn't bite your Linus off, did it?
In case you're wondering, the first issue of Linus does have Linus on the cover,
Oh,
sucking his thumb and holding his blanket.
in Italy?
Yeah. You know, the rights and things are a little more lax when you get to Europe, so...
Yeah, no shit, right? I mean, that was 1974. Oh, yeah. It's like watching, like, Simpsons parody porn at this point. You know, it's like they can just do whatever the fuck they wanted with these
Oh, so...
copyrighted American characters.
So the magazine published foreign comic strips like Peanuts, Lil Abner, Bristow, and Dick Tracy, along with others.
Ah.
But it was also the place where Italian comics found space for the first time, including Neutron Valentina by Crepax.
Wait, isn't that movie with Kevin Spacey where he's an alien?
No, this is Guido Crepax.
Hey!
Oh no, he's one of the greatest erotic psychedelic comic artists of the 60s, 70s, coming from Europe. Does great stuff. Check out Crepax stuff.
Okay, so he did eat that banana with the peel on it then.
Of course, who doesn't?
Wait, did he do Barbarella? No, that wasn't him.
No, that was Barbie. Rella.
Listen, I gotta get out of here.
No, he's the cousin of Spinderella. I don't know if you've heard of.
The resemblance is uncanny.
Where are you going to put the cricket sound in there?
Well, I don't know why that one received crickets.
No. My whole bit, that was the crickets worthy.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's see here. So for 20 years, Pratt wrote and published Corto Maltese as its own comic magazine until 1988, when its final arc, M.U., The Lost Continent, was published. And it ended in June 1989, right around the time that Batman came out.
Weird.
That is weird, actually.
Well, no, it's probably just like, I'm sure it was relevant to the creators working on Batman, whether it was a Sam Hamm edition or a Tim Burton edition or another writer
they
who was
had
working on it.
I don't know that they had a lot to say about when that was published and when Batman was released.
No, I'm just saying I think
it's just an amazing coincidence.
They probably were aware of Corto Maltese ending when they were making it.
It's possible. This was an extremely well-regarded and much beloved comic book / graphic novel / comic strip character. Well, really to this day. We just don't know a whole hell of a lot about it in America. The name Corto is a derivative, etymologically, from a pigeon or argot or argot.
Yeah. A cryptolect, which is a great term.
You know what it is? Yiddish. It's the same thing as Yiddish. It's not Hebrew. It's sort of a slang dialect derived from its original parent language. And this comes from the Andalusian, and it means quick hands. That'll get you canceled nowadays. So Corto Maltese, his whole thing was swashbuckling. Swashbuckling? Is that something? Yes, swashbuckling. Like Errol Flynn, a swashbuckling adventurer who fought for the downtrodden and the underdog, essentially. Created by Hugo Pratt to represent a sort of a folk hero that rejected nationalism and ethnic identity that obviously Europe had a really big problem with. His ideology is just to help the downtrodden, a little bit like Zorro, but less nationalistic. He famously is friends of children everywhere, like Gamera.
It's him and Ronald McDonald,
Which is weird because he becomes friends with a fictionalized version, because like 99% of versions of this are fictionalized, but a fictionalized version of Rasputin. But it's not actually Rasputin. It's just some Russian dude that they call Rasputin who looks like him. But he has nothing to do with Tsar Nicholas or the Tsarina or the Russian court or anything like that. It's just It's kind of like the way that Western media treats the character of Rasputin today.
Yeah.
Like, he has nothing to do with being Rasputin other than that was his name. And,
No, don't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Right, exactly, yeah. He's also friends with a British aristocrat, Tristan Bantam. And then a, quote, voodoo priestess, Goldmouth.
Yeah, I looked her up.
Oof.
It looks more like maybe you would think of like an early 20th century southern United States kind of voodoo priestess kind of would look. Like in the French Quarter.
Right, yeah, we're dealing with a lot of stereotype?
Yeah, I'm just saying it could be a lot worse.
Sure, there's no bones through her nose or anything like that. Yeah, like it could be way worse than that. Also, he becomes friends with a Czech scholar named Jeremiah Steiner. But then in the comics, a bunch of actual real-life historical figures. Hemingway, for some reason, Herman Hesse, James Joyce, Butch Cassidy, weird, Joseph Conrad, not to be confused with William Conrad, John Reed. He becomes friends with a real Russian general named Roman von Eugen Sternberg, which is a strange name for a Russian, but he's referred to as a white Russian, which is a very misleading descriptor because it either sounds like the drink or a white supremacist Russian. But in fact, during the Russian Revolution, there were, of course, many different opposing factions trying to overthrow the government. The Red faction, led by Vladimir Lenin, ended up being ultimately victorious, but there was what was called a White faction. And it's funny because they still refer to it as the White Movement. Let's not call it that.
It should have been blue. That's the opposite of red, right?
I mean, red is different to different cultures, obviously, but basically they were the anti-monarch but anti-communists who were fighting in the Russian Revolution, way messier than people realize, which is why they were somehow both socialist and communist, which are not the same thing, because they had to be like pull everybody under one tent and call themselves something that everybody else could kind of, I guess, settle on. But the White Rebellion were the non-Bolsheviks. And actually, they existed basically until World War II. Yeah, so he's referred to as the White Russian. He does a whole fucking Forrest Gump thing. He ends up talking to Joseph Stalin.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of stuff that he was present when the Red Baron was shot down.
It's Forrest Gump, but with more interesting stuff.
Yeah, cool Forrest Gump. Where he
Yeah,
he helps, there's a time when he helps Merlin and Oberon, the king of the fairies.
How does that work?
I don't know.
Oh, because they were all in the lost continent of Mu. That's why. Which you would think that'd be, I don't know, Atlantis or something. Fuck, I don't know.
Land of Mu, as some people call it, Atlantis.
Oh, that makes more sense. Okay. I mean, no, it doesn't make any sense. Sure. Okay. At least put that together.
Except maybe real. I mean, it may be.
Well, it might be flat. Who knows? His adventures are like young Indiana Jones. The good stuff, not when he was a little kid.
Yeah, but not as a youth. He's a full adult man.
It's essentially all the fan fiction of Indiana Jones's adventures that you want, or you see in Young Indiana Jones, the series, when they finally get rid of the little kid. Yeah, he does a lot of fighting fascists and yada, 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 and discovers lost continents and does all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's just classic sort of, he's kind of a tribute to the adventure stories of the era in which he's set, which makes him very much like an Indiana Jones character, dealing with stuff that Jules Verne wrote about. I think he's very much a character set in a highly romanticized time and does romantic ventures, which makes it crazy that America doesn't know anything about this character. Like, you'd think there'd be movies and TV shows and all sorts of shit with this guy, right? Or at least the shitty Stephen Sommers adaptation.
That's the thing I don't quite understand. Especially in the 70s and 80s, you had all of these versions of these pulp heroes.
They did 2 movies of Alan Quartermain during Indiana Jones's reign.
It seemed like that would be fair game during the Indiana Jones fever.
How did we get Beau Geste, but not this guy? How did we get Billy Zane as the Phantom, but not a Corto Maltese? It's really weird. He's in the Russo-Japanese War, the one where Russia got their asses kicked by the Japanese, which was really a portent of things to come. The First World War, the Russian Civil War, the October Revolution, which is separate than the Civil War. People don't really recognize that in the United States. He flees Italy during the rise of Mussolini, and he shows up during the Spanish Civil War. And that was his like Reichenbach Falls moment where he's missing in action and assumed dead. So essentially this guy's just kind of like I don't want to say pirate because that has a different connotation, but
like a Robin Hood kind of pirate.
He's a seafaring Robin Hood, yeah, who is also Forrest Gump.
Some Indiana Jones in there.
Yeah, it's very Indiana Jones. So by nature, extremely Alan Quartermain. He's got some of that. He's got some Scarlet Pimpernel kind of thing. Zorro, guys like that all came from the same essential source material kind of, and Batman as well, obviously. And so he's kind of like in that vein. He's not wealthy, but he lives like he is because of all these crazy things he does. He just knows how to live. Very Indiana Jones. I mean, Indy doesn't have money, but somehow manages to do everything in the world, sitting in on royal courts and stuff. And
yeah, but he seems like kind of bullshit his way into that kind of stuff.
He does. Well, mostly because he speaks so many languages. I think it's the biggest thing. When most people...
He can blend in, disappear.
Got lost in his own museum, man. Come on.
You know, Indy, we'll buy whatever you bring us, no questions asked.
So, much to Americans' surprise, I'm sure, there have been many adaptations of this into on screen. In 1975 to 1977, Secondo Burgundy produced it said semi-animated, and I'm not exactly sure.
I was wondering the same thing. I was like, what does that mean?
So are we talking Cool World, or are we talking Clutch Cargo? Because I don't really... And it was produced by RAI, which is a really famous cartoon production company from the 80s. Remember, we've talked about that before. I'm not really...
If we can get... All right. So they seem to be animated to me.
I wonder if it was rotoscope.
I mean, maybe. It looks a little more like C-Labby, but better than that?
Well, that wouldn't be hard. I mean... They cut corners on American animation back then was real garbage.
Oh, these are the later ones.
This is 75 to 77, semi-animated. And these were only animated spots in a show called Super Gulp, Fumetti in TV! !
I can't find it anywhere.
Well, I mean, it's probably pretty hard to track down. It's a 70s shitty cartoon.
But how would that not...
Inside a fucking a different show like Tracy Ullman and the original Simpsons that ran for 2 seasons in Italy. I mean,
the internet's letting me
good
down
luck.
Here. I find that the 2002 and 2003 stuff all over the place.
Oh, yeah, well, that stuff was way more... I mean, it was a lot easier to find stuff like that, and it was a lot more widely distributed. Then after that, there was a French language film, Corto Maltese, La Cour Secrète d'Arcane, which is essentially just Corto Maltese in Siberia. That, of course, was released in 2002. And then they produced Canal, which didn't Canal do some of the Highlander stuff? Because it's a French...
I mean, if it's French, they usually have their fingers in that pie.
Yeah, even if it's just tangentially, I think they were involved to some extent with the Highlander series, because that was a hybrid French-Canadian show. They did in that year a series of Corto Maltese adventures for TV, where they adapted The Ballad of the Salty Sea, Under the Sign of Capricorn. It's Celtic Tales, and then The Golden House of Samarkand. Okay.
A room called The Secret Rose. Beyond the Windy Isles.
Oh, boy.
The Ethiopian.
Oh, hello.
Under the Midnight Sun. Fate Line. The Queen of Babylon.
A Canadian animator and cartoonist named Guy
Delisle.
He wrote a lot about working on one of those French language adaptations in North Korea. Because I hate to tell you all about Western animation from the 80s all the way through, I guess, today. Everybody has this like weird vision of Disney Studios or whatever, but He-Man, G.I. Joe, all of that kind of stuff was all done in Vietnam or Korea. Just like how a huge number of comic books were drawn by Mexican artists back in the 70s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mexican, South American artists were...
Yep, South American. Yep, absolutely.
You could pay them pennies on the dollar, essentially.
That's why they do it, yep.
Also, if you get a chance, Guy Delisle, he's written multiple graphic novels. All good. 100% recommend.
Oh, okay. That's cool. In 2018, an opera was written about Corto Maltese, adapting the Ballad of the Salty Sea.
I bet they were.
it premiered in Malta at Valletta at the Teatro May-Noel Youth Opera. Kids?
It's Utes.
What's a Ute? As part of the, quote, Valletta 2018 European Capital of Culture. Right, because everybody flocks to Malta for that.
I had my ticket. I had to cancel. Something came up. My fridge needed cleaning. So
I did get invited at one point to the Malta Comic-Con.
Did you?
Yes, which I would 100 million% have done. Even though apparently Malta really sucks. Apparently they're really like...
Oh, if you look at pictures of Malta, it's beautiful.
Oh, no, it's gorgeous, but apparently their government is terrible. The opera was composed by Monique Cruz and directed by Carina van Eyck, E-I-J-K, based on a script by Tama Matheson.
All right.
And so in 2020, a live-action film adaptation to be released worldwide was being developed of Corto Maltese in Siberia. It was supposed to star Tom Hughes as Corto and Mia Jovovich, and was to be produced by Samuel Hadida, Lionsgate, New Line Cinema, Warner Brothers. He produced True Romance.
He also worked on the Silent Hill video game adaptation, which is what the director who was working, Christoph Gans, was...
Right, and also Resident Evil, where you get Mia Jovovich.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
He wrote and directed Le Pacte de Loup, The Brotherhood of the Wolf.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
that's a
awesome.
movie that happened. I mean, I haven't seen it in probably 20 years.
I have good recollections.
Yeah, I mean, it does have, what's his name from?
Mark Dacascos?
Yeah.
That you're thinking of? And also Monica
Yes.
Bellucci and Vincent Cassel?
Oh, it does have Monica Bellucci in it, doesn't it? Fuck.
Oh, yeah.
I remember liking it then. I did remember thinking it was weird that Mark Dacascos was playing a Native American. They just kind of plug him into whatever ethnic role they want. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, he is Japanese. He is literally the nephew of the guy that started Iron Chef. And he was also, you know what? He was also Eric Draven in The Crow, the TV show. People forget that happened.
That's true. He was born in Hawaii.
Yeah, a lot of Japanese Americans are.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking, is he...
Oh, I'm sure he's got more in there. I'm just saying.
So his father was born to Filipino parents, and his mother is of Irish and Japanese ancestry.
Oh, he's a melting pot.
Yeah, which I guess maybe is why you can...
So, of course, he's Native American. What?
I think at least they don't have him speak at all. So
Yeah, he's not wearing a headdress or anything. Like,
no, but I do think
No.
he has some tribal paint or tattoos, if I remember right.
he has war paint on in that
Yeah.
movie for sure.
Yeah.
Which then the white dude then literally co-opts.
Yeah, well, they're best friends. If you're warriors fighting a possible supernatural beast, you can co-opt your friends fighting stuff. Those are the
If you're
rules.
French. I
Oui.
mean, I don't know. Pushing it, man. I don't know. You're getting into some weird Lone Ranger territory there. I don't know if that's okay. To tie this all together is in Batman 89, Vicky Vale is a photographer who I believe, was it Time magazine she did the photos for? I think it was Time. Either way, she's a world famous photographer who photographed the atrocities.
It is Time.
Time. Okay.
I just looked up the images.
During the atrocities committed by kind of what they imply to be a Khmer Rouge type organization during the revolution on the island of Corto Maltese. And this most likely comes from Frank Miller, unfortunately. In the DCU, starting with The Dark Knight Returns, number 3, The Hunt for the Dark Knight, they refer to a small island off the coast of South America, which is not a country, where the Corto Maltese Revolution was taking place. It was then reaffirmed to be in the DCU comic continuity, at least, at the end of Time Masters number 4.
You know, the best comic.
The one we're always talking about. Even I don't really know that one. I mean, I Challengers of the Unknown, maybe. It was referenced sort of in a throwaway scene as a newspaper headline that said, "More arms to Corto Maltese," which is strange because The Dark Knight Returns technically isn't in the mainstream DC continuity, so whatever. In other versions, it is named to be a location of a LexCorp secret laboratory, but in The Dark Knight Returns, which Frank Miller's best work? Probably.
Yeah. I mean, definitely most
iconic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can say what you want about Sin City, but I mean, it's, it's
Sin
kind of
City,
a niche thing.
Maybe his work on Daredevil?
I still think his Batman work is more iconic. I mean, his Daredevil work is great.
I mean, you also don't have him
kind of
spoiling what he did, Daredevil, as much as he did with Batman.
They turned Karen from a well-renowned reporter into a prostitute junkie. What the fuck is that?
Oh, yeah, and you know what? He makes Catwoman a prostitute.
Oh, God.
Something that had never been before.
Which makes zero sense for that character in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, but anyway, he brought the Corto Maltese into the DC universe, technically. In it, it's an island that goes through a sort of Cuban Missile Crisis / Grenada type situation, because Reagan is president in that series. There's a rebel uprising, not unlike Cuba. It received Soviet destroyers. So a lapdog, weirdly corrupted Superman is sent by Reagan to fight the Soviets there. So it's supposed to be sort of underground and in secret, but then it becomes public because it's so crazy and he's not doing very well. So the Soviets unleash a secret weapon called the Coldbringer missile, which really takes the wind out of Superman's sails, which then Batman uses to taunt Superman when they fight at Crime Alley, which is the scene that Zack Snyder steals to do that opening fight scene in Batman vs. Superman.
An homage, my friend.
Oh, is it? Yeah. I think it's called a circle jerk.
Well, it's my favorite kind of jerk.
Well,
that one, it's right above soda, honestly.
Yeah, but then who has to eat the cracker at the end of the day? You know what I mean? Like, one of you guys has to eat it. So
it's a Krypton cracker.
So Superman, then. At least we have a scapegoat.
It's glowing green.
So Vicky Vale spent time in Corto Maltese, where she shot photos of the horrible atrocities, which, I mean, at least that was timely, and they don't even give you anything kind of specific. That kind of thing is in the American pop culture zeitgeist at the time. And so when Joker looks at her portfolio in the museum, you don't need any more explanation as to what she was doing there, what was happening. It just kind of, it works and everybody kind of gets it, right? I mean, that's fine. He doesn't know if it's art, but he likes it. But then my favorite part was not the greatest movie in the world, but also a vast improvement and a better direction for the DCU. James Gunn sets the Suicide Squad in Corto Maltese.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yep, that island that they go to, that is Corto Maltese.
Oh, all right.
In that one, it is a Caribbean nation, which is still pretty on par, in the midst of a civil war between a dictator and its revolutionary factions. And then, of course, in that movie, the Suicide Squad is sent in during the midst of this chaos by Amanda Waller to destroy Jotunheim, which is a Nazi-run gulag / laboratory. Caribbean is pushing it, but South America, yes, I could totally see that being an interesting point of historical fiction, where they're holding Starro, because apparently Starro had been captured by the Nazis years before. They didn't really talk about that plot point much in the movie. When we talk about the Suicide Squad, we don't go, oh yeah, you know how the Nazis captured Starro? Well, that really doesn't come up. But that is the plot of the movie.
Was it the Nazis or was it
It was originally the Nazis.
Was it?
And then it was taken over. It's kind of like Winter Soldier or Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have these Nazi things, and then the Soviets kind of took over some of those projects, and the U.S. took over some of those projects. And as it turns out in the film, spoiler alert, Project Starfish was actually funded by the U.S. government after they took it from the Nazis. So.
Shocking.
Yeah, there's a shocker. Oh, I learned way more about Canadian Nazi stuff yesterday that just fucking blew my mind. That it's insane how much Nazis still have control over what we used to call the Allies. It's just fucking nuts. So that's sort of the main, that's kind of Corto Maltese in the DCU. It is also referenced in Arrow a couple of times. They also do reference it in Smallville, where Lex talks about having a laboratory there, which is in comic book continuity.
Wait, Smallville's not in comic book continuity.
No. But in comic book continuity, LexCorp has a lab there.
Oh, yeah, okay. Sorry.
They're referencing comic book continuity.
Gotcha. I think I misunderstood.
I know I wasn't very clear. In Smallville, Lex Luthor mentions, by referencing comic book continuity, that LexCorp has a laboratory in Corto Maltese. So that was them actually referencing continuity, which is rare for that show. And yeah, the Suicide Squad came out in 2021. So it's still in the comic book zeitgeist. It's a weird thing running in the background of comic books, comic book adaptations, the DCU, which incorporates both the comics and the movies and cartoons. But it's still there.
Yeah. And
it's kind of important. And most people who go back and watch Batman, even if they see the movie and they, they're like, oh, Corto Maltese. Okay. No idea where that comes from. No idea the rich history behind that, or that it's actually kind of a bigger deal than people think it is.
Or at least where the name comes from.
Well, right. Where the name comes from.
Yeah. And you didn't even mention that in 2022, it was announced that the guy who brought it from this obscure European comic to DC-esque mainstream, Frank Miller, is set to adapt the graphic novel into a 6-episode hour-long TV series with Studio Canal and Canal Plus.
Yeah, well, that was 2 years ago, so...
I mean, yeah, it's one of those things announced. Will it ever happen? Probably not.
Let's hope
not, since everything else he's ever laid his hands on has been awful.
Yeah, and if you watch The Spirit, I'm pretty sure they rescinded that announcement immediately after watching that.
Wait, what has this guy did?
Oh boy, yeah. That movie is the worst comic book movie of all time. But there is still an official website in English. Just go to cortomaltese.com. No, I thought it would be more complicated. Yeah, I thought it really would. It's just cortomaltese.com.
It's just two brothers.
It's just called Two Brothers. Yeah, but anyway, that's Corto Maltese. I thought that would be a fun one. It's a deep cut. It's a weird one. It's one that you and I would joke about, but really have never really thought about, as a...
No, it's one of those things that years ago, working at the comic shop, I came across some Corto Maltese. I was like, oh, shit. Corto Maltese. That's where this comes from.
It was a thing. Yeah, and it's a thing, sadly, because of Frank Miller, but cool because of Batman 89. Which I think treated that really, really well. Because at that point, especially, that is a deep cut. I mean, it only come out in Dark Knight Returns 4 years before that, essentially. Yeah. When it was written less than that. And to pull out that, especially since Batman is not an adaptation of The Dark Knight Returns. It's a really interesting deep cut pull. Kind of like Vicky Vale, but... Well, that is our pseudo 100th episode. I thought we'd do something really weird, deep cut that we both think is interesting. It's just tying some things together we've never really put together in the knowledge zeitgeist. But it's a thing, and it's fascinating, and you'll think about it next time you watch Batman.
I'm thinking about it right now.
So watch Batman.
Just go watch Batman.
Because our other idea was we were just going to quote Batman from memory. So be thankful.
Yeah, if we ever get a Patreon, we're going to do commentary of Batman where we put the movie on and we just do all the lines.
Yeah, the movie's on mute.
Yeah.
And we just do the lines.
We do the lines, so you don't have to.
Because we can do that. Let me be clear. We can do that.
Let me be clear.
In fact, we may not even need the movie on.
No, but it would help.
It would help.
We can sync it up so that
it would help timing-wise.
Yeah, it's a timing issue.
Blocking and timing, and yeah. Otherwise, we could just do that, and it would either be 4 hours long or 30 minutes long. That's the problem. That's why. That's the reason.
That's why we put it on, and we're like that tight 2 hours there, or however long Batman is. I don't know.
It's probably between those, but I mean, it's definitely not a long movie. It might be 2 hours, but it was definitely before movies were all 4 hours long.
2 hours 6 minutes.
Wow, that's long for back then.
Well, I mean, people used to be a lot shorter. They didn't live as long, so.
More on this with Eugenics by Jake. You've heard of Body by Jake. This is Eugenics by Jake. He's got a nutritional supplement.
You don't need to work out if you've got good genes.
All you need is my boner pills.
None of this fucking matters.
You know what? That is our mantra.
Yeah. And with that, we'd like to thank you all for listening to None of This Matters.
We're changing the name of the show officially to None of This Matters.
We're all cosmic specks in a great, unending march into nothingness.
Or we're all star stuff, if you want to come from the optimistic view of that.
No. Everything sucks.
Everything's cynical.
This has been Dispatch Ajax. We hope you've enjoyed. Please come back, listen again. If you like what you've heard, please like, share, and subscribe. Send it out to anybody who you think might be interested. Perhaps they don't know about Corto Maltese and would like to learn. If you are a fan and you have enjoyed yourself, please think about going on and writing a review, perhaps giving us 5 Andalusian Argos on your podcast app of choice, perhaps.
It was that European knockoff of Ben Affleck's movie. Also won an Oscar.
It was just an Oscar. It was a Grouch. He was in a trash can. That's the Oscar they won.
Andalusian Argo, also done by Salvador Dali. Really interesting.
It's where they cut Ben Affleck's eye open.
Right, and then it fades into the moonlight. It fades into the movie Moonlight with Mashallah Ali.
Oh, we made a mistake. Moonlight's the winner. Sorry about that.
Gladiator.
But yeah, if you wouldn't mind leaving us some stars, if you're so inclined, that'd be great. It helps us get heard and seen. That's how we get the word out. And again, thank you all for listening. We couldn't do this without you. I mean, technically we could. We do.
We could, but it'd be like screaming at the wall.
Yeah, which is kind of what it feels like sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
But, we hope you enjoyed. And enough with our negativity. Skip, what positive things should they do?
Yeah, thanks, Nega Jake.
That's where I got to put my black sunglasses on.
What, you also need sunglasses? It seems like hat on a hat at that point. I mean,
I'm Nega Jake. That's
Are you Kid Chameleon? Or are you going to go skitching later? I mean, what the fuck are you talking about?
I'm going to put my sign up, Gone Skitchin'.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for at least knowing what I'm referencing. God, everybody should probably make sure they've paid their tabs, make sure they've cleaned up after themselves to some sort of reasonable degree, make sure they have supported their local comic shops and retailers. And from Dispatch Ajax, we would like to see after 100 episodes, Godspeed for wizards.
Please, go away.